Rajat Gupta was worth $100 million. He was the CEO of McKinsey, the most prestigious consulting firm in the world. He sat on the board of Goldman Sachs. He had everything, and yet he threw it all away for a little bit more. He's now a convicted felon. Bernie Madoff managed $65 billion. He was the chairman of NASDAQ, and he destroyed thousands of lives, including his own, because what he had was never enough. When more becomes a death sentence. This is Chapter 3 of The Psychology of Money, Never Enough. This chapter asks one of the most uncomfortable questions in personal finance. And it's not, how do I make more money? It's, when do I stop? Because here's the terrifying truth Morgan reveals. There are people who have tens of millions of dollars, sometimes billions, and still they take insane risks to get more. They cheat, they steal, they gamble everything. Not because they need the money, but because they've lost sight of what enough means. Enough is the hardest word in finance. And the scary part? It's not just greed. It's something deeper. It's a goalpost that keeps moving. Every time you reach a financial milestone, your brain immediately sets a new one. You wanted to earn $1,00,000 a month? Now you want 5. You wanted 5? Now you want 20. You wanted a flat? Now you want a villa. You wanted a villa? Now you want a farmhouse. The goalpost never stays still. And if you can't learn to stop it, no amount of money will ever be enough. Morgan's message is clear. If your expectations rise faster than your income, you'll never feel wealthy, even with $100 million. Let's look at our first story, Rajat Gupta, the man who had everything. Let me tell you the full story of Rajat Gupta, because it's one of the most shocking falls from grace in financial history. Rajat Gupta was born in Kolkata. He lost both his parents as a teenager. Despite that, he got into IIT Delhi, then Harvard Business School, and then joined McKinsey & Company, the most elite consulting firm in the world. And he didn't just join McKinsey. He became the managing director then, the global CEO, the first Indian-born person to lead a major global corporation of that stature. By the time he left McKinsey, he was worth over $100 million. He sat on the boards of Goldman Sachs, Procter & Gamble, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He had influence, respect, legacy, everything a person could dream of. And then he threw it all away. Gupta started passing insider information to a hedge fund manager named Rajaratnam, confidential information from Goldman Sachs board meetings. In one case, he called Rajaratnam just 16 seconds after a Goldman board call ended, to tell him about Warren Buffett's $5 billion investment in Goldman during the 2008 crisis. 16 seconds. That's how fast he was willing to risk everything. He was caught, convicted, sentenced to prison, lost his reputation, his board seats, his legacy. A man with $100 million committed a crime for what amounted to a few million more. Why? Because $100 million wasn't enough. Being on the board wasn't enough. Being respected worldwide wasn't enough. He saw people around him, hedge fund guys, making even more, and he wanted that. The goalpost moved. Let's look at our second story, Bernie Madoff, $65 billion of lies. If Rajat Gupta's story shocks you, Bernie Madoff's will horrify you. Madoff ran the largest Ponzi scheme in history. $65 billion. He was the former chairman of NASDAQ. He ran a legitimate, highly profitable trading business. He was already incredibly wealthy, but it wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted the status of delivering impossible returns year after year. And instead of admitting that consistent 12% returns every single year in bull markets and bear markets was impossible, he faked it for decades. When it collapsed in 2008, thousands of people lost their life savings. Charities were wiped out. His own son committed suicide. Madoff died in prison. This is what happens when enough doesn't exist. It doesn't just destroy you, it destroys everyone around you. Now you might be thinking, these are extreme cases, criminals, fraudsters. That's not me. And you're right. But the never enough trap doesn't only show up as crime. It shows up in everyday decisions. And let me give you a very recent example. The Crypto Collapse of 2022 by Sam Bankman-Fried. Let's talk about Sam Bankman-Fried. In 2021, this guy was worth $26 billion. $26 billion. He was 29 years old. He was on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, every major magazine. He met with heads of state. He was compared to the next Warren Buffett. He ran FTX, one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. He could have stepped back, invested conservatively, and lived in unimaginable luxury for 10 generations, $26 billion. But it wasn't enough. He used customer deposits money that wasn't his to make risky bets through his hedge fund Alameda Research. He gambled with other people's money. He faked financial records. He lived in a penthouse in the Bahamas while his customers' money was evaporating. In November 2022, FTX collapsed in less than a week. Billions of dollars gone. Ordinary people who trusted the platform wiped out. And in 2024, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He went from $26 billion to a prison cell, not because he wasn't successful, not because he wasn't smart, but because $26 billion wasn't enough. He needed more. He needed to be the biggest, the most powerful, the most talked about. And here's what hits hardest. In interviews before the collapse, he openly talked about how money was just a way to keep score. It wasn't about what money could buy. It was about winning, about being ahead. That's exactly the disease Morgan describes in this chapter. When money stops being a tool and becomes a scoreboard, you will never stop chasing, and eventually, the chase destroys you. When money becomes a scoreboard, nobody wins. Rajat Gupta, Bernie Madoff, Sam Bankman-Fried. 3 different decades, 3 different industries, the exact same mistake. Not knowing what enough looks like. But here's the thing. You don't need to be a billionaire to fall into this trap. This happens to normal people every single day. Morgan talks about something very important in this chapter, social comparison. And it works like this. A person earning $50,000 a year wants to earn what their colleague earns $100,000. The person earning $100,000 looks at someone earning $500,000. The person earning $500,000 looks at someone earning $5 million. Each person looking up at the next ladder, never looking down. It never ends, because there's always someone above you. Always someone with a bigger house, a better car, a more expensive vacation. And if your definition of enough is more than the person next to me, you will never, ever get there. Morgan puts it beautifully. The ceiling of social comparison is so high that virtually no one will ever reach it. So the only way to win is to stop playing that game entirely. The only way to win the comparison game is to not play it. I think this chapter is the most important one in the entire book. And the reason is, it forces you to ask yourself a question you've probably been avoiding. What is enough for you? Not in a philosophical way, in a real, concrete way. What salary is enough? What house is enough? What car is enough? What bank balance would make you say, okay, I'm good, I can relax now? Most people can't answer that question, and that's terrifying. Because if you don't know what enough looks like, you'll spend your entire life chasing more and never actually enjoying what you have. I'll tell you what changed for me after reading this chapter. I started defining my enough in terms of freedom, not things. Enough means I can pay my bills without anxiety. I can take care of my family. I can take a week off without worrying. I can say no to work I don't want to do. That's my enough. It's not a number. It's a feeling of control over my time. And once I defined that, something strange happened. The urge to compare myself to others got quieter because I finally had my own scoreboard. All right, 3 things to take away from this chapter. First is define your enough. Sit down and actually think about it. What does financial security look like for you, not for Instagram, not for your neighbor, not for your college batch? Write it down. Make it real. Because an undefined goal is an unreachable goal. Second is never risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. This is maybe the most powerful sentence in the entire book. If you have a comfortable life, a stable income, and a growing portfolio, don't gamble at all for a shortcut to 10x returns. The potential gain is never worth the risk of losing what you already have. Third is stop the moving goalpost. The next time you achieve a financial goal, a salary hike, an investment return, a bonus pause, actually pause. Feel it. Appreciate it. Don't immediately set a new target. Let yourself enjoy the win. Because if you never celebrate where you are, the destination becomes meaningless. That's chapter 3 of The Psychology of Money, Never Enough. The chapter that quietly asks you, are you climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall? In the next video, we'll cover Chapter 4, Confounding Compounding. It's about why the most powerful force in finance is also the most underestimated. We'll talk about why Warren Buffett made 99.7% of his wealth after his 65th birthday. Yeah, 99.7%. You'll want to hear that story. Like this video if it made you think. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And drop a comment, what's your definition of enough? I genuinely want to read your answers. See you in the next one.